A personal letter that tests the gospel's social implications. In Christ, a slave and a master become brothers. Reconciliation moves from theory to a house church doorstep. This is Seek, Go, Create. You are listening to Read the New Testament in 90 days. 27 books in order, in context. We're walking through the New Testament the way it was written so you can hear it the way the first churches did. We are getting it in context and having fun doing it. Make sure you get our resources at k2m.foundation/NT90. There's a downloadable reading plan and a lot of other good stuff there. So go check that out. k2m.foundation/NT90. Today's stop is Philemon. We sort of referenced it in Colossians, the last episode. This is the shortest of Paul's letters. I think they sort of relate a little bit. Seems as if it may have been written around the same time. And it's interesting, it's one of the most revolutionary because of the message that it carries. And we'll talk more about that here. Some key facts. This is Paul with Timothy. We believe Timothy was with him. This was when Paul was in prison in Rome. This was written in AD 60. So this is about the third letter, I believe, if I'm counting correctly, that was written in 60 AD. And fascinating, just kind of a sidebar here. I was kind of looking at our list before I hit record, and we've already done 2 books or letters that were written at the same time frame or close to the same time frame from Paul. And it's interesting as we look and project out, 18 of the 27 New Testament books were written over the next 8 years in our time frame of the first century. Between 60 and 68-ish, 2/3 of the New Testament was written during this incredible time. You know, for those of us that live in the 1900s or the 2000s, we talk about the turbulent 60s in the United States and the world. Well, let me tell you what, they were nothing compared to the 60s of the first century when all of these things were going on, building up to the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And 18 of the letters that we now read in our New Testament, we believe were written during that time frame. Keep that in mind as we're reading here. The audience here, this is very interesting. Paul specifically wrote this to Philemon, and he had a house church in Colossae. And I'm sure that the others in the church listened in on this letter, especially after it was possibly read privately. I tried to imagine this, and we'll talk more about the setting in just a moment. But anyway, again, we're trying to put ourselves in the audience of the context of these letters and these epistles. So keep that in mind here. And the setting, again, we're 30 years post-resurrection. Paul is still in prison. Tychicus and Onesimus carry this letter alongside Colossians. That's why I believe it sort of relates to Colossians. They were carrying both of these. So it had the letter to the Colossians in this bundle that they were carrying. And then it also had what I consider to be somewhat of a private message for Philemon. We now get to read these as part of our New Testament. In Rome, let's set the stage here, historical context. In Rome, Nero is still on the throne. Paul is under house arrest, as we've said. In Jerusalem, the temple is still intact. Daily sacrifices are going on. It's 10 years before the destruction. Philemon, let's give a little background here. He is a wealthy believer in Colossae. We know from what Paul says, he's generous, faithful, known for refreshing the hearts of the saints. The church meets in his home. Paul brought him to faith, and he's going to remind him of that in this letter. Onesimus was his slave. He ran away, maybe after stealing. We're not sure. There's some implications there. Maybe he was just seeking freedom. He disappeared into the crowds of Rome and somehow encountered Paul, who was under house arrest. Paul shared the gospel Onesimus believed. Now he's returning, not because the law requires it, but because the gospel does. Here's the tension, and I want us to feel this as we read this letter from Paul to Philemon. Roman law allows brutal punishment for runaways, beating, branding, even execution. Within the law, Philemon has every right to do those things. He's got the legal right on his side, but Paul is asking him to receive Onesimus not as a fugitive, but as a brother. Why now? Wrongs need to be made right. Relationships need to be reconciled. That's why that word reconciliation, to me, I love pairing it with the reconciliation that we learned about in Colossians that arrived with this letter, or they were transported with this letter. I think it's so cool. In Colossians, it's big picture restoration. And here in Philemon, it's narrow relationship between two people reconciliation. Powerful stuff. Paul sends Onesimus back with a letter pleading his case, not commanding it, not demanding it, but appealing on the basis of love. It is defining relationships in God's kingdom, and it's different than Rome and even in the Old Covenant. Here's what you're going to encounter. Philemon is brief and personal. The gospel meets social hierarchy. You're going to hear about partnership in the gospel. Paul addresses Philemon as a fellow worker, beloved partner. Onesimus has been transformed, he says. He's formerly useless. Now he's useful. Kind of a wordplay on his name as we understand it. It's an appeal, not a command. I could order you, Paul says, but I appeal to you on the basis of love. He is now a brother, not a bondservant. I'm not sure that we fully grasp that word bondservant in our current culture. He is no longer a slave, but more than a slave, he is a beloved brother. Receive him as you would receive me. Paul stakes his own relation on Onesius's welcome. The categories haven't legally changed, but in Christ, something deeper has: brotherhood. All right, so here's what you're going to do. This is a short letter, but read it in that context. Read it in one setting and consider that personal relationship restoration that Paul is attempting to get across in this. Powerful stuff. What's next? After this, we're going to jump to Philippians, another letter from jail, and one that is filled with joy. What happens when hope isn't tied to circumstances? Okay, don't forget to follow along, k2m.foundation/NT90. If you haven't visited that site yet, make sure you go there. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on your podcast platforms, you can find it easily on the website and in lots of places, lots of good stuff there. So let's try to do something a little bit unique here. Let's do all that we can to put ourselves in Philemon's shoes here. So picture this. It's AD 60. You're Philemon. The church meets in your home. You are known for your love and faith. A messenger has arrived from Paul, and with him, a face you didn't expect to see again. Onesimus, your slave, the one who ran away. Under Roman law, you have every right to punish him. But in his hand is a letter from Paul, and Paul is asking you to receive him, not as a fugitive, but as a brother. Now, let's read.